Welcome to the Digital Business Evolution Podcast, a place that you can now call home. I know you're creating long-lasting impact in this world, and you absolutely deserve the time, location, career, and financial freedom that you desire. I'm here to guide you with proven strategies, tools, and mindset hacks that I've taught to thousands of business owners. You'll also be hearing from exceptional guests sharing stories of their own personal and business evolution. My name is Jessica DeRose, and I'm here to teach you what I'm learning. We are all inherently worthy, regardless of the number of degrees, awards, and accolades that we've collected along the way. Grab a notebook, a coffee, and enjoy the show. Hey, I'm jumping on real quick to let you know about a really cool opportunity to work with me completely for free. So every Tuesday, I'm offering coaching over texting. And that means the first 10 people to text me on my number and ask me a question, I'm going to coach them back completely for free. Voice memos, long form text, it 100% is me. This is the stuff that lights me up most in my business. So your questions can be anything from business to strategy, working with your spouse, RV life. Really, there are no questions off the table. You just need to make sure that you get it in quickly on Tuesdays because I am only coaching the first 10 people. So my number is 973-358-7836. This is for US numbers only. Make sure on Tuesdays you text me your questions. I'll get you your answers, and you'll be added to my text community where you're going to be getting different texts from me throughout the week. Strategies, motivation, all the things. So 973-358-7836. Can't wait to hear from you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. I'm excited because today we have a very special guest here, one of my dear friends and fellow entrepreneurs who is a total boss. He has so much value to bring, so much knowledge to bring. And I'm telling you right now, this is an episode that you are definitely going to want to either re-listen to or pull a notebook out and make sure that you can take some notes. Please be not driving. All right. So we've got Mike Golub on the show today. He is a world-class sales leader, a mentor, and a friend. After becoming the #1 ranked sales executive at a multi-billion, yes, I said that with a B, multi-billion-dollar international company and building 2 7-figure businesses, Mike has developed the wisdom and expertise to help other entrepreneurs and salespeople reach new levels of success. His renowned ability to develop deep connections with people, evaluate businesses, and identify specific opportunities for growth has allowed him to lead multiple top-performing sales teams at one of the largest privately owned companies in the world and mentor 6, 7, and 8-figure entrepreneurs. Aside from business, Mike is very passionate about traveling, investing, reading, meeting, and listening to his favorite motivational speakers, cooking, exercises, and I'm going to riff here with ATVing in the beautiful mountains of Sedona. Mike, welcome to the show.
Wow, Jess, that is such an introduction. Thank you. And it's such an honor to be here as well. Yes, that is a perfect example of trust your gut because ATVing is one of my favorite hobbies as well. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm so excited. So of course, before we go into your story and where you came from and all of that, we have to tell the listeners how we met because it's so ridiculous.
Oh boy. Okay. Go ahead. Go for it.
All right. So both of us and our partners, my husband, Mike, and your partner, Kat, whom I'm sure a lot of our listeners actually know, the one and only Miss Excel is your partner. We were traveling. We were doing the digital nomad life. And I think you guys did it a little bit longer than us. So we did 14 months in an RV. You and Kat did 18 months. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
And you guys were hopping really like Airbnb to Airbnb with a car, but then you also did fly to Hawaii and spend a bunch of time in Hawaii, right?
Yes, that's right.
Insane. And you also left New York right around the same time that we did.
Yes, we left October 2020.
Yeah. And we had left in September of 2020. So we did not know each other back on the East Coast. We ended up meeting in, of course, Sedona. I mean, technically, I think it was, where were we? Prescott Valley or what's that ghost town? Jerome? Yeah, Jerome. So if you've ever been to Jerome, Arizona, you know what we're talking about. But we ended up meeting randomly in a parking lot. We were paying the parking meter and Kat, with her bubbly personality, ran up to me and just started talking to me. And what I didn't realize was that earlier that day, you guys had met other mutual friends of ours. And so they sort of invited you into the day and we ended up, running around, going to galleries, getting lunch, getting coffee. And it was just an instant connection.
Can I add something there? Would you mind?
Please, of course.
So I don't even know if you and Mike know this, but before all those events occurred, right when we woke up in the morning, I was just kind of sitting on my couch waiting for Kat to get ready so we can grab coffee. And I was looking at Pat's Instagram, who's our mutual friend, and I saw him off-roading with Mike in their Jeeps. And I was like, oh, wow, that's awesome. I was like, that Jeep is sweet. It's all lifted up and everything. And then sure enough, an hour later, myself, Kat, you and Mike, Pat and Jen were all in Jerome together. So it's almost like we're all meant to meet. I mean, of course, the universe brought us together at that moment on that day, and it was just perfectly aligned.
So crazy. Yeah. And then, it was really funny because as the day unfolded and we did the typical kind of, maybe not so typical in the normal world, but it was like, what excites you? What inspires you? What are you working on? And then through that conversation, it was kind of like, and what do you do? And so come to find out, you and Mike actually had worked for the same company. He was there many, 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 many years ago, but you both ended up working at the same company for a while in this corporate world. We're both over from New York. We have all these similarities. And so it was just an instant connection. We kept in touch as we digital nomaded and would always kind of come back to either Zoom or Sedona. And so our paths have crossed so many times. We were lucky enough to actually spend New Year's Eve with you guys this year, which was so special, and just a couple of really other incredible memories. So anyway, without further ado, Mike Golub, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jess. Really appreciate it. Such an honor.
Yeah. So, I have to go back here. You worked and helped build, and you were #1 ranked in sales at a multi-billion-dollar company. How long were you there? What were you doing? What does it even mean to be in sales and to be ranked #1? What did you have to do to get there?
Ooh, loaded question. All right. I'm ready for it. So I started off my career with my 4-year degree from one of the top private schools in New York, washing cars at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Yes, my parents were very proud. And, within a few months there, I really started to fall in love with sales because I realized, and quote unquote, I'm going to use big, but in quote unquote here, I used to get big tips from customers when I would talk to them while washing their car and build a connection with them. And I started to realize like, wow, that's kind of sales, right? Building relationships. That's the foundation of sales. So within a few months, I completed a 6-month or 12-month training program to get into management within 6 months. And the reason was I just realized that I had a gift of connecting with people and bonding with them. From there, I worked myself through the ranks, and 8 years later, I was the #1 ranked salesperson in North America, managing a few $100 million worth of vehicles. And I was also one of the youngest in the role in the nation. And the whole reason for that was just really came back to the first part that I mentioned, connecting with people and understanding people and seeing things from their lens and their perspective, and then being able to provide the right solution for them.
Yeah. Were you selling cars? Were you selling contracts to corporations? Like, what are you selling at Enterprise?
Well, I sold a lot of things over the years. The first thing I would say was myself. Really selling myself as, a person who could lead a team and manage a team effectively. And once I did that, I was able to get the buy-in of my teams. I've managed numerous sales teams, anywhere from 5 to 25 people. And once I was able to sell myself effectively and get their buy-in, we went on to set numerous company-wide records, which some of them still stand today, years after I left. And then after that, I was selling protection on rental cars. I was selling upsells into rental cars. Eventually, as I got higher up within the company, I was selling corporate partnerships. So I used to manage fleets for some multi-billion-dollar publicly traded companies. And I'd be the person who would meet with the executive team there and actually establish a partnership between Enterprise and that company. So at that point, I was, 25, 26. I was pretty young. Some might say inexperienced, but at the end of the day, all that matters is that you have the trust in yourself and the partnership to really see things through.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like you were chasing a number or, chasing a sale where it could border on maybe being out of integrity? I'm not saying you ever were out of integrity. I know you, but when you're in a position like that, where there's maybe compensation on the line or commissions and bonuses or rankings, like you were ranked #1, was it ever something that you felt like in the corporate world, you were actually kind of encouraged to just do whatever it takes to make the sale? Or is that not true?
Yeah, I think a lot of people here would want to say, no, that's not true. But I'm gonna kind of go on a branch here and say, yes, that is true. And I wouldn't say for our customers at the time. I would say more so for enterprise. Like, it might not have been the best fit for enterprise, but at the end of the day, when you're a salesperson, you're always chasing a number. And once you hit that number, the number gets bigger. And once you hit that one gets bigger, right? And the only reason why you're still able to call yourself a salesperson at that company is because you continuously hit that number. So there were times where, yes, there were partnerships, may not have been a great fit for enterprise, definitely a great fit for the customer. But, I worked within the company and within management and within the relationships that I built with my managers to get that deal moving forward and keep it moving.
Yeah. I love how you mentioned that the relationships were the foundations for sales. And once you had that relationship with a person or a team or whoever it might be, and you were able to sort of sell yourself for that buy-in, then you focused on the product. We're going to make the shift in a moment because now you're very much in the coaching industry and working with a lot of entrepreneurs. Would you say it's the same thing for an entrepreneur or a coach? Relationship first, product second?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you're a 24-year-old, I'm going to say kid at the time. And let's be honest, I didn't have real life responsibilities. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have kids. I wasn't married, right? I'm managing a team of people who have real life responsibilities. I was the youngest person on the team, and I was the manager, right? So they see things differently. Yeah. And this incoming paycheck, that allows them to keep a house, allows them to keep their house, keep food on the table. So building that relationship and getting the trust and having them see you as an equal, that's big, especially when you're, on the younger side of the role.
Yeah. Was there ever a pressure for you to hit numbers? And if so, like, how did you handle that pressure? Because I know even for myself, I'm the one creating the pressure. I am my own boss. We are the ones creating our target goals, our stretch goals, our easy goals. And yet I'll put so much pressure on myself that in the past, I've even made myself, physically sick and driven into burnout. So do you have any tips for someone who's listening, who's super hungry and self-motivated and driven? Maybe they're creating their own pressure and goals, or maybe it's coming from a job they're still at. Do you have any sort of guidance around how you navigated any of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to answer your question, yes, there's always pressure when you're in a sales role. And when you're an entrepreneur, there's pressure too, always, right? Because that's how, you eat what you kill. So in terms of how to, tips on how to navigate that, there's a line that I heard years ago that always stuck with me. And I'll be honest, I don't remember who said it or even how I heard it, but maybe it was in one of my dreams from, whatever it may be. But there's a line that says, every morning when you pick your head up off the pillow, just know that you have everything you need to win. And that always stuck with me. Even on the worst of days, every time I take my head up off the pillow, sure, there were days I didn't feel like working. There were days where I felt like, wow, I know today's going to be a long one. But I always said to myself, you know what? I picked my head up off the pillow today. And that's the only sign that I need to know that I have everything I need to win.
I love that. I just wrote that down. Okay. So you said eat to kill, which is one of those phrases that it kind of makes my skin crawl because I don't want to kill anything, but also I get it. And as an entrepreneur, we're in a place where if you don't essentially bring home the food, if you're not bringing home the bacon, you got nothing to eat. Right. So both in financials and like you're saying, your mortgage and your food and all these different things. So it's a beautiful kind of just a metaphor for what entrepreneurship is. Now I've watched you and Kat. I've only known you for 2 years, but I've watched you step so deep into a different type of money mindset, a different type of kind of financial thermostat and the approach to money. And I think it's so interesting. Number one, you being a super driven masculine man. Number two, you of course have your feminine side, but number two, being a sales guy. And then to watch how you approach money is just fascinating to me. I don't feel that you take an eat to kill approach to your business or to Kat's business. So what is some of the work that you have done or you've done together? And how have you made those shifts to being more in the receiving and the universe will bring me and guide me and the trust and surrender that you have that's so beautiful?
Such a good question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, let's just say, Kat and I both, but really I'll speak for myself here. I grew up with humble beginnings, divorced parents at a really young age. My family went through very, very difficult financial hardships. And mind you, I also grew up in one of the wealthiest towns on Long Island because my family was doing well before the divorce. And then the divorce hit and the perfect storm happened. And that was when I really started to realize that, I can spend money wisely and still be in a receiving mindset. So it took me a lot of work to kind of work through the scarcity mindset that developed in those early years of my life, having it all, losing it all. And that was one of the deepest lessons that I've ever learned, especially as a younger person on this planet, right? So some of the work that I've done, Kat and I both did Lacy Phillips' program, To Be Magnetic. Yeah. If you've ever heard of that, that was monumental for our relationship, our money mindset.
When was that?
And our ability to that was right in the beginning of the pandemic. So it must have been March, April. Yeah. We realized that, there's another famous line from Eric Thomas that said, never let a crisis go to waste. Yeah. And the whole point of that is when you're in a crisis, right? Or I like to say a learning opportunity, take advantage of it, learn a new skill set, learn something new, meet new people, right? And that's what we did. So we started Lacy Phillips' To Be Magnetic program. Like I said, incredible, totally shifted my perspective on life, wealth, everything. Also, I would say just being around the right people was massive for us. I mean, spending time with yourself and your husband, Mike, and Pat and Jen, who we mentioned before, being around people who believe in you, even when sometimes you have a little trouble seeing through the clouds, right? And also showing you what's possible, being around people who are expanders, listening to expanders on podcasts. That's the beauty in today's generation. 20, 30 years ago, they didn't have the ability to hop on a podcast and listen to people who showed them what's possible. But, today, I mean, look at us. We're on Zoom, right? Talking about the beautiful lives that we've built respectively, but also together as friends, and being around those types of people and immersing yourself in that type of energy is so, so critical to being able to shift your mindset and shift your perspective.
Oh, there's so many directions that I want to go in right now because there's so many things that I want to talk about and unpack. I mean, I didn't realize that you had just done that program in 2020, which wasn't that long ago. So I could be guessing here. It's an assumption, but is it true that, just a couple of years ago, you were completely different people?
I don't even know myself from 2019 or even 2020. At the time, there was someone in my office who, was with Enterprise for a long time, and I don't know the exact number. Maybe he was making $400,000 or $500,000 a year, and I was like, "Wow, that's a lot of money," and that is a lot of money in many ways. And I thought that was kind of the most that you can make, and that's where I set my thermostat. Right. Mm-hmm. So if you're talking about a room and you set your thermostat for 65 degrees or 70 degrees, every time you get too high above that, if your thermostat's set to 65, you're gonna change your behaviors to get to 65, right? And same thing on the way up. If you're below 65 degrees, you're gonna change behaviors until you get to 65, and then you're set. And that was when my thermostat was set. Like 400,000 or 500,000, I'd be set for life. Yeah. And then I started to hang around people who were making 100,000 a day. They go to Greece for a week, make $1 million, right? They would have $2, $3, $4, $5 million months, and I just didn't realize that was possible at the time. Yeah. Now, $400,000 or $500,000 a year, abundance. That's beautiful. That's great money. I just hope that people who are making that amount know that there's more to life. And I hope that if you're not making that amount, you know that you can make that and then much more as well.
Yeah. Oh, it's so interesting too, because so many of us, I think all humans, I know definitely in the entrepreneurial world, we hit these milestone markers, whether it's, the 10K month, the 100K month, the 4 million, whatever it is. And we're just constantly moving the finish line. And it's like, okay, let me just do it again, but bigger. Let me do it again, but more. And something that we've focused on the last 2 years as we've scaled the team is not just let us do it again and bigger or more. It's actually, we're cool with just replicating where we were, but let's do it with less capacity. Like, let's use up less energy. Let's use less man and woman power. How can we get there with more fun? How can we get there with more time off? And so it's been such an interesting game to play because the ego is constantly striving for more, more, more. And, that was a question I was going to have for you before. I was assuming you were surrounded by a lot of people with a lot of money. I mean, here you are working with this multi-billion-dollar company. You're seeing the money go in and out. And what was your financial thermostat at the time? So you've already really answered that question. And so, It's fascinating because I kind of know where your business is today, and it's just been such a quick transition. So how in the world did you get involved in this weird entrepreneurial coaching space when you had a corporate 9 to 5 job where you were ranked number 1 in the country? Like, how did you get involved in coaching?
Oh gosh. So where do I start? All right. October 2020. I want to say I attracted this incredible opportunity to work for someone who I really, really looked up to, one of my mentors, someone who I listened to on podcasts.
Sure.
And someone who was a hero for me. And I was invited to join his team and handle their sales and be the director of sales and work around some of these incredible entrepreneurs.
How though? Did they scout
really
you, or were you looking?
I wasn't looking at all. I actually wasn't looking for a change. I was actually pretty happy with where I was at.
Yeah.
And that was just at the brink where I didn't realize there's more. There's more for me. And so what happened was, we were in Sedona at the time. And I remember Kat's business, Miss Excel Corp, just started to grow exponentially. And it was really, compounding month over month. And one of my mentors, Gerard Adams, his girlfriend, fiance now, but girlfriend at the time, reached out to Kat, and she said, hey, your business is growing really well. I'd love to support you on your journey. And long story short, they had a conversation and they hit it off. That was literally the week that I made number 1 in North America as a salesperson at Enterprise. And I think not even the week, it might have been the day.
Wow.
And anyway, they hopped on a call, which prompted Kat to bring that up because I think it just happened that day. And Ashley was like, hey, Gerard's actually looking for someone to help with sales on his team. Would you be open to would Mike be open to the opportunity? So here I am. I'm ecstatic. I really looked up to Gerard. And I hop on that call. Gerard was actually walking out of an Enterprise at the time. He didn't know I worked there. He was walking out of an Enterprise. And he turned off the Zoom camera and he goes, hey, 1 second, I'm just returning a rental car. You mind hanging on 1 second? So he hops back on the call. I thought he was messing with me when he asked me where I worked. And I kind of paused. I was like, is this a rhetorical question? And I was like, oh, well, funny story. I worked for Enterprise and you have to go there. And he was like, oh my God, this is crazy. So long story short, within a few months, I left Enterprise for the I want to say the entrepreneur unknown, right? We're building a business together. And it definitely wasn't the stability that I had. And I loved it. I found to love that.
Yeah.
And this whole time, Miss Excel Corp is really building up. I'm working with Gerard. We turn Leaders Create Leaders into a really just fast growing company. Brought on a bunch of new team members, reached 7 figures in revenue. And then, I started working privately on the side after a conversation with Gerard, which we agreed I could start having private coaching clients for sales coaching. And started to build up my book of business. And we went our separate ways. And I had, a great book of business of private sales coaching clients where I was coaching entrepreneurs and salespeople on how to close more business because that's where my whole expertise was, or is rather. And then still doing that, I also became the CFO of Miss Excel Corp, which is a business that my girlfriend, Kat Norton, and I have been working on since the very start of the pandemic. We always say it was born June 7th, 2020. So about 2 years and a week ago to the day of the recording of this podcast. And now I'm also her CFO. And it's just been such a blessing working with, I like to say, my better half.
Yeah.
And really just growing together. The business has been phenomenal, really impacting a ton of lives and providing courses around Microsoft and Google products. So how to just save time while you're using those during your day-to-day. And so here I am. A really long, drawn-out response.
Yeah.
To a rather simple question.
No, it's so important that everybody hears this because we all see whether whoever's journey it is. And it always looks like the overnight success. And it always looks so shiny and pretty on Instagram. And I know for me, I've shared my 10-year overnight success story numerous times. And I don't think people can get sick of hearing that type of stuff. So it's been so cool to watch you. And if people do head over to your Instagram at Mike Golub _ or, at Miss XL with Kat, I mean, Kat's got 1 million followers on TikTok and like 700,000 on Instagram. Her content's so good. And she built it. You guys have built it so quickly that it's very easy for someone to look at who I'm talking to right now and just kind of roll their eyes. Oh, well, must be nice. They have something I don't have. And I just love how you always talk about your humble beginnings and just kind of the whole journey. And I think it's crazy too. So you're having this conversation with Gerard in October of 2020. I'm in Tulum with not only one of his best team players, B Don, right? I'm in Tulum with Brian Donovan because I went through Leaders Create Leaders Mastermind back in 2018. So how funny is that? Which is like, so unreal. We were like meant to be friends. All right. So let's switch over. Let's switch gears to do some teaching. You down for some teaching and some good content for the audience?
Let's do it.
Okay. One of the most common questions that I get from clients or just audience members is, how do I sell without failing salesy?
Ooh, I love this question. So many ways to sell without actually presenting a traditional offer. One of the best ways and my favorite ways is to present testimonials. So giving a testimonial or presenting a testimonial rather is one of the best ways to subconsciously sell. Yeah. Because let's face it, there's a competitive culture out there between humans and they want to always have the best of the best, right? So if you're presenting testimonials for a client that you worked with and you got them results, other people perceive that as, hey, look, there's more out there for me too. Yeah. There's more results out there for me as well. And it also demonstrates how successful you are at what you do as a coach or as an entrepreneur. So testimonials are a great way to sell. Another thing that you could do, especially on social media and Instagram, is, I know, Jess, you do this pretty often, is you source questions from your audience and from your following about, hey, ask me anything, ask me about branding, ask me about developing an offer, right? So when you source questions from your following, one, it helps them because this is their chance to really ask a question and get your direct attention. But two, what that does is, again, demonstrates your value. It demonstrates how you're present with your audience, and it also builds the connection. Remember, connections, relationships, whatever you want to call it, that's the foundation for sales. Yeah. So those are my top 2 ways to sell without selling. The third one is, and I want to be careful how I explain this and delicate how I explain this, but also to just offer free advice. And I don't mean messaging everybody who follows you and telling them, hey, you should put this there and that there, but rather, hey, I have a few ideas that could help you, and I'm happy to, just share them with you for free. Take them how you feel, and no commitment, no strings attached. But I just know that, it's my purpose and it's part of my service to help people. And I just wanted to share these ideas with you if you're open to it.
Hey, I'm jumping in to tell you about our newest free tool, a tool that will change the way you approach your business. After working in digital marketing and the coaching space for nearly 10 years, working with thousands, scaling to multiple 7 figures, and helping our clients generate over $11 million in revenue, I've recognized a pattern from all of the most successful coaches and entrepreneurs. They all have an awareness that struggling business owners don't have. You see, they know their unique coaching superpower. After taking this quiz, you'll uncover which of the 4 superpowers runs through your DNA. This awareness will help you discover your personal strengths and blind spots so that you can succeed faster, make a bigger impact, and exponentially grow your income. To take this free quiz, just head on over to jessglazer.com/quiz, and you'll be on your way to harnessing your superpower in minutes. Don't forget to share it and let me know which superpower you have. Tag me at I am Jessica DeRose. Okay, there's 2 things I want to talk about here. The first one is, I can hear the eye roll from some of our audience members right now. I don't have testimonials, Mike. I haven't had clients yet, Mike. What am I supposed to do if I don't have testimonials, Mike?
Yep. Well, you got to start somewhere, right? So one way to do it without having testimonials right now is maybe you start off offering your services at a lower cost. At the beginning, I was doing it for free, to be perfectly honest. One, to prove to myself that I'm worthy of this and I'm able to do this. Yeah. And two, social proof is one of the strongest forms of proof out there. So if you have people that are singing your praises and people that are really pushing and recommending your services because of their success and the results that they had, that's only going to attract more attention. That's only going to attract more clients. So don't feel pressured to go land a $10,000 client today and get a testimonial out of them. One thing that you could do is exchange your services for a testimonial, given that they've reached their expectations and exceeded.
I love that. I love that so much. There's nothing wrong with that. Plus, I think there's also, in sales, it's funny, people say there's fortune in the follow-up, but this also refers back to just something like this. So if you have ever worked with a client in the past, whether it was paid or unpaid, if you've ever done maybe a speaking gig or just even helped out a family member, honestly, where you're sitting at a picnic and they're picking your brain, if you will, on whatever topic it is that you're an expert in, it's really just following up and saying, hey, remember last week or last summer or whatever, would you be able to write me something? And it's just getting some blurbs, whether that's written or video. So there's always going to be fortune in that follow-up. Okay, I want to shift gears because you said offer free advice, and that was the third one. Now, I have a super strong opinion, which a lot of people do, on free advice. It's a very polarizing topic. So there are, I'm sure, many, but I know of two schools of thought here. School of thought number one is one that I follow, and that's give it all away for free. And so the way that I see this, I'm going to ask your opinion, but the way that I see my content, give it all away for free, is that number one, respectfully, my content is not Googleable. Everything is Googleable. Everything is researchable. Chances are it's not proprietary. The way that I teach it is proprietary, but the information is out there. So people can find the information. Number two, I believe that if I have a solution to a problem, it's my responsibility to share it. So if I'm not sharing that information, then I'm hoarding it. And if I'm hoarding it, I'm not truly making an impact. And the third thing for me is I strongly believe that we can get music for free on YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, Apple Music, and yet we still pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars in tickets to go to concerts or music festivals, because being in the room, being in the energy and having the experience, i.e. someone joining your program or buying your course, is not the same thing as getting something for free. And of course, people who pay attention. Now, the other school of thought, which a lot of my incredible mentors who are running 8-figure businesses who clearly know their stuff say the opposite. They say, don't give it all away for free, because if you give all the milk away, they're not going to come back, right? So there's this analogy people often use when you go to the mall back in the day, and they gave you like the little chicken on a skewer to taste. And they say, oh, you liked it. Do you want to come in and buy a plate? Well, maybe. But if they had given you a full plate for dinner, like a full meal for free, and then said, oh, great, you liked it. Do you want to come in and buy some? You're like, no, I'm good. I'm full. So I understand conceptually that school of thought. I'd love to know, as a sales guy, where do you fall with like the free information? How do you feel about it?
Absolutely. So I love how you say that there's multiple schools of thought, because there are, right? And there's successful 8 and 9-figure entrepreneurs doing it one way, and successful 8 and 9-figure entrepreneurs doing it the other way. So there's no right way. And I just want to preface what I'm about to say with that. Where I stand is like you, give it all away for free. And the reason is really, I would say 3 things. 3 things, right? One, that's the best way to serve your audience. That's truly what's best for humanity. And if you know the answers to the equation, it's okay to give it away, because what that does is that helps them buy into you. That demonstrates your value as the leader, right? Or as the person who can help them reach to that next level. There's another line that, and I hate to keep bringing up these lines, but this is what I listen to all day. When I'm not on a podcast, I'm listening to podcasts. There's another line that always sticks with me, and it's at the end of this lifetime, right? You cannot take what you've received with you. You can only take what you've given. And I always internalize that. And it's like, the more I give, it makes me happier. It makes me happier knowing that I'm leaving people in a better place, right? So if you can give to more people and you can do it and it doesn't, destroy yourself or your business, then do it, because it makes it easier for you to sleep at night as well, when you don't have to worry about, did I share this with them? Did I not? Did I do this? Did I not? Like, all it does is it builds a stronger relationship. And again, Like if I haven't said it 37 times throughout this podcast, relationships are the foundation of sales. So I'm a big believer in that.
I love that. All right. Well, I'm glad we're on the same page there. My palms got sweaty when I asked you. I wasn't sure what you were going to say. All right. So shifting gears a little bit, we talked about how not to feel salesy, which was great. What are 3 or 5 common mistakes that you see entrepreneurs, coaches, small business owners make when they're approaching sales, or the way they approach sales?
Oh, so one of the biggest things I see is, people who want to sell their services or their product, they'll just sell their services or their product without even asking the right questions and knowing if it's a right fit for their prospect or for them, right? They might even be taking on a client that's not even the right fit. And in my world, that's like going to a restaurant and the waiter or the waitress is like, you know what, Jess, you're going to have a cheeseburger today. And it's like, they don't even hand you the menu. They don't tell you what's on the lunch. Are you vegan? Are you keto? Like, they don't even know, right? They're like, you know what, I know you want a cheeseburger.
I would be very upset.
I know you would be very upset, right? So that's exactly how prospects feel when they're like, hey, how do you know I want a cheeseburger today? We haven't even talked before, right? You don't even know what I sell.
Yeah.
So whenever I get, it's funny, people will DM me sometimes asking if, not asking, but rather selling me their things. And it's like, that's the biggest turn off for me is when they start selling and they don't even know if it's a fit. So one of the best things you could do is just ask questions out of pure curiosity. Like, hey, what's your greatest challenge with your product today? What are you looking to overcome in your business over these next 6 to 12 months, right? Or what are your goals? We got half of 2022 left. Where do you want to be come New Year's Eve, right? So just having a sense of their direction will help you and them understand if it's actually a good fit. And then after that, once you have an idea of what they're looking to do, and as long as it's aligned with what you can do for them, really asking if they'd be open to hearing some ideas that could shift the trajectory of their business.
Yeah, that part's huge.
I personally, I love to ask. And I love to ask, even if they're open to having a conversation with me, because if they're not, it shows me what I'm working with. Are they stubborn or are they open-minded? And, I've consulted hundreds of businesses throughout my life. I've closed 10, 20, 30, $40 million deals with some of the top executives out there in the business world. And I can tell you that the best businesses and the best clients are open-minded. Those are people who are like, hey, look, just because we've done it this way for 30 years doesn't mean it's the best way to do it. Maybe there's someone out there who does it. That's why Elon Musk always says, hey, I didn't go to Harvard, but the people that work for me went to Harvard, right? Because they're open to sourcing new ideas. They're open to hearing about a better way of doing things.
Do you feel like it's I guess you could say red flag if you start a conversation and the person isn't open to receiving or hearing? Is that kind of a good indicator that maybe there's just more time to build the relationship that's needed? Like you could just put a little bit more work into building the relationship before you sort of swing the bat again?
Yes. So if they say no, hey, look, I'm not interested. One way that, again, so you could subconsciously sell is to share testimonials of people who have had the same challenges that they spoke about, right? So, hey, look, I recently worked with, whatever, Jess. I'm not going to say, I didn't coach you, Jess, but I'm going to use your name here, right? I recently worked with Jess on how to do this. I'd love to share this, quick 1-minute video with you that she recorded, right? Or another thing that you could do is, hey, look, I personally went through that many times throughout my career. I would love to just send this your way. And if you'd like to open it, great. If not, no worries. And what I do that really helps take the sales out of it is I always give people an out.
Yeah.
Right. Because if they say, hey, look, no worries, no harm, no strings attached, they have no reason to not open that email, right? Or even take that call with me. So it just comes off a lot more human to human, which again, is so key to building that relationship that fosters a sale. Just being human and not being a robot or an Excel spreadsheet that just calculates numbers and says, hey, look, this is what I could do for you. Right.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Unsolicited advice and unsolicited offers make our central nervous system go into fight or flight. And just as humans, we close off and we go into defense mode and we actually stop receiving. So even in coaching, when you're about to give critique or feedback, I always coach my clients to make sure that they're coaching their clients by saying like, are you open to feedback? Most of the time they're going to say yes, because that's why they're in that particular container, but it's that open invitation that makes people feel safe. So I'm dying to know, and we'll get back to more mistakes. When you've received, because we've all gotten them, some of these cold DMs where they just come in hot, they don't build the relationship, they just give you the sale right away. Have you ever messaged back and been like, hey, are you open to a better way of doing things?
So over DM, I might have, I don't remember if I have, but definitely over like a cold sales call I have. Sometimes I'll have, whatever it may be. A lot of times my warranty is up, even when I didn't own a car, because I had a company car for 10 years, my warranty was up for somehow. But no, but sometimes I'll get a cold call, right? And people try to sell me their service. And there was a few times where I was like, hey, look, my whole background's in sales. If you're open to it, I'd love to share some things that have helped me land multi-million dollar deals on a cold call, and then a lot of times, well, actually not a lot of times, because it's happened like maybe 2 or 3 times, but I think all 3 times the person was like, hey, yeah, I'm open to it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, look, I'm not going to say it's the right fit for me necessarily, but maybe you'll get the next person, right? And this is what I share with them. So, for instance, when you're opening a cold call and you're the cold caller, one of the things that you should do is always within the first 7 seconds, like bring as much credibility as you can from a social standpoint. So you don't want to open the call necessarily by saying, hey, I'm featured in Forbes, blah, 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 blah. But we're like, hey, Jess, I'm working with coaches in the online industry to attract more clients to their pipeline and create constant revenue. Would you say that and I'm just doing this off the cuff, so don't hold this against me, I haven't thought about this, but is that something that you'd be open to learning more about? And if they say yes, great. If they say no, I have a whole strategy for overcoming objections.
Sure.
Because even the best salespeople are going to get objections. Even Derek Jeter struck out many times throughout his career. So I have a whole process that helps you overcome objections.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, you want to open up with questions and open up by piquing interest.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear your opinion on this. There's a battle that's been going on, and is certainly the online coaching space for a while. And it's sort of this battle between the masculine and the feminine. And you can hear it in my voice, because I think the whole thing is just absurd, because I believe that we need both. And I believe there's a reason and a season for both, pushing and pulling and sitting and standing, and like the duality is both, right? We can't have a river without water and a river edge. Like you need both to have. So it's the yin and the yang. And so this battle of this nonsense is crazy, but I would love to hear your opinion on, there's definitely a portion of the coaching industry that I've heard more recently that is very anti-sales calls. They're anti, quote unquote, handling objections. They're anti kind of old traditional ways of doing sales. And I'm not shitting on it. I could even potentially agree with some of it. I also still very much use a lot of those tactics. I think there's a time and the place. I think that there are different types of learners. There's different types of buyers. And so at Digital Business Evolution, we like to essentially cater to anybody's needs. We want to meet our potential client where they're at. So they want a call. I'm not better than getting on a call. I'll get on the call, or one of my coaches will get on the call. They don't want a call. They don't have to have a call. So I would just love to hear your opinion as someone who's been in the industry for so long, sales in particular. Do you think that cold calling and cold DMs are good or bad? Is handling objections something of the past? Should we still be doing that? Or do you see it as sort of this, like, I don't want to have to convince people, like, I'm not going to handle objections. If they're not ready, they're not ready. Where do you stand?
Oh, I love this question too. So cold calling is not dead. And let me be completely clear. Cold calling is not dead. And the reason why I say that is so many people believe it is. But I generated about $40 million in sales over the past 24 months, mostly through cold calls. So I will say it's not dead. And maybe it's dead for some people because of the way they approach it. So it's not dead for everybody, right? Just because you did it one way doesn't mean it's not working for everybody. So there are definitely strategies out there to improve. A lot of which I've shared through my content in the past, and even just having conversations with people. But having a cold call and following up with people is actually what drives the sale and what drives the transaction. And, there's an old sales statistic out there that still rings true, even from in my experience. And 80% of sales take somewhere between 5 and 8 attempts to actually happen. And I remember, I'll never forget when we just started Miss Excel and Kat sent out, I think like one of the first bulk emails to maybe I don't know, at the time we had 500 or 1,000 people on the list. And I think we got like 1 or 2 sales from it.
Yeah.
And this is, in the early stages. And she came into the room, the next day, she's all upset. And she was like, how do we only get 1 or 2 sales? We've got so many people joining webinars and whatnot. And I was just like, honey, 80% of sales take somewhere between 5 and 8 attempts. And that's where we wrote a whole follow-up email template and just all of these different methods to maintain touch and contact with our prospects and clients. And that's when our business started to really take off, and we grew to 7 figures in just about 12 or 13 months.
So crazy.
And now multiple 7 figures. So, and that's all within 24 months and 1 week.
That's crazy. So can you clarify for a second, when you say the word attempt, is that purely pitching an offer, or is an attempt also them maybe reading free content or having a touch point through a webinar or a live? Could it be all encompassing, or is the word attempt in reference to the sale, the pitch?
No, it's not necessarily in reference to the sale or the pitch or the, are we ready to move forward question. It's not necessarily in reference to that. That's part of it, right? Yeah. But I'm going to say touches here. So it could be join a webinar. It could be, here's my free guide to XYZ, right? But just somewhere between 5 and 8 touches is typically what it takes to get the sale done. Which
is probably why we see the same commercials. I mean, I haven't had cable for years, but over and over and over, right? You watch like a football game and every single commercial break, it's the same 4 commercials every time. And they're paying a ton of money to have that ad space. And now we have these free platforms that we get to use, like social media and email marketing, and we get to have those touch points with our audience, right?
There's a reason why there are people out there spending millions and millions of dollars for 30 seconds of your time, multiple times a day. So they're doing something right if they have that amount of money to invest in advertising. Yeah. Right.
Okay. So with this also like trend of kind of the masculine, feminine all going on, historically, the way that I have always learned sales, the psychology of sales and the psychology of numbers was, end a number in 9.7 or 9.9, because psychologically it leaves the first number smaller. Example, sell it for 297 rather than 300, right? Or 299 rather than 300, because when the brain sees the first number as a 2, it's not as bad as a 3. And we've got lots of people selling things with angel numbers. So angel numbers are repeating, and that would be like 444, 111, right? 1111. And there's meaning behind those things. Do you have any opinion or feedback or guidance on which might be, I don't like to use the word better, but the path that you would encourage somebody to take? Or is it sort of just try it out with your audience and see?
Yeah, I might take the conversation in a little bit of a different direction here. I hope you don't mind.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say there's a right answer to that. If you're focused on how much value you're providing and how much you're going to impact this person's life. I mean, if you're giving away $20,000 worth of, say, value here, you're going to change their income by $20,000 this year, and you're charging $499 or $399 or $333 or whatever it is for your program, they're going to invest anyway, right? So I would focus on how much you're going to change their life and how much value you're providing over that number. With that said, I've seen people price it both ways. I've seen successful entrepreneurs do it both ways. And there's no right answer there. But personally, I lean on the side of 397 or 297 or 197, whatever it may be, only because it does, perceive to be that lowest 100, like real, round it down to the lower 100.
Yeah.
I like that. That's just what I do. But hey, I mean, there's so many ways to be successful. So that's not just the only one.
I love that answer. I think it's also just knowing your audience, right? There's a space that really is enjoying kind of those angel numbers. And then there's another space who might be listening right now and they're like, I've never even heard that term before. So I think that's important. As we begin to wrap it up, I'm so glad you just used the word value twice in one sentence, because I wanted to ask you if you could give your definition of value, because as we are creating offers, the way that we teach it, it's all about the value, right? When you put an offer out there, it's all about the value. We talk about the island and the destination rather than the vehicle of how they're getting there. And I remember an Instagram post that you put up, I don't know, probably a couple of months ago, and you were speaking specifically about value. I believe you were using a water bottle. And I would just love if you could break down what the heck value even means. And is it the perception of the audience member or the perception of the business owner that matters?
Oh, absolutely. So there's two components of sales. There's the COI and the ROI. COI is cost of inaction. ROI is return on investment. Together, they make a sale. When someone sees value in the ROI and the COI, the sale is typically done. And how to define value is really when there's a strong enough cost of inaction where it makes sense to do this versus do nothing, right? I'd rather do something than nothing. And the thing that I'm doing is worth the investment, right? I'm going to get more out of it than what I put in. So as long as you can make your audience feel like they're giving you $10 bills and you're going to hand them back 20s, they're going to invest all day, no matter how you price it, no matter what you do. There's a reason why Lamborghini and Rolls-Royce sell so many cars that they actually typically sell out of their entire year's worth of allocation without any commercials.
It's crazy.
I mean, how often do you see a Lamborghini or Rolls-Royce commercial, right? Not only that, a Rolls-Royce takes 6 months to build, and it's all handmade. So people are willing to wait 6 months, and this market could be 12 months or 18 months for a Rolls-Royce that's priced at $500,000 because they know that they're going to get more value out of that in terms of joy and happiness. So that's how I define value, is really by creating a formula, right? Where your COI is strong, your ROI is strong, and the sale is able to come into fruition.
I love that. And an ROI, your return on investment, doesn't always have to be financial. I think a lot of times people get tripped up. I work with so many different types of entrepreneurs. A lot of them are in health and fitness and nutrition. And so their response or their rebuttal to me is kind of like, well, it's different for you. Your clients are making money. My clients aren't. And it's like, yeah, but what are they making? What are they gaining? What are they creating? Whether that's a happier life or better sex or losing weight or more comfortable in their skin, right? Whatever, healing gut issues. I mean, we can go on and on. Love that so much. All right. I can talk with you literally all day, and I'm so grateful that you've given us so much value and so much juice. I want to wrap it up with a couple rapid fire questions here. Are you down?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Okay. What are you currently reading?
Ooh. So Alex Hormozy, 100M Authors. Yes. I think I've read it 3 times.
It's so good.
I'm finishing up my 3rd time reading it. And I like to reread books a lot. So, I'm reading Think and Grow Rich for probably the 3rd or 4th time as well.
So good.
Which I will say, every time I reread books like that, not every book, but those 2 books in particular, I feel like the first time. I feel like I'm getting so much more out of it that I didn't pick up on. So currently reading those 2. My Audible credit just renewed for 2 more credits this month. And I'm kind of on the scout for 2 great books. My next 2 adventures. So if you have any recommendations, I'm all ears. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Well, it's funny, because now we're in our Jersey home. And so we unpacked a bunch of boxes that had been in storage for 2 years. And one of the boxes was a bunch of books, which I've read all of these books except one. And so as we unpacked, there was only one book I hadn't read. So I said, all right, I'll start it. So I'm currently reading a very old book, Many Lives, Many Masters. I don't know if you've ever read it. Ooh. I feel like you and Cal love it. Yeah. It's about like reincarnation. It's pretty cool. Okay. Next question. You mentioned podcasts a couple of times. You love podcasts. Who are some of your favorite podcasts?
The Ed Milet Show. I think I've listened to every single episode ever produced ever. That show just wows me every time. Unbelievable stories. Also, the Chris and Lori Harder Show.
Yeah.
I've been like totally just loving every episode. The one that came out today with Eric Thomas, I listened to it, at the gym. And I mean, Eric Thomas was probably one of the first motivational speakers I ever listened to. I went to go see him live with Gerard actually in 2015 when he did an event with Gerard.
Wow.
So that really drew me in. It just helped me realize that there's really no excuse. There is no excuse in life, and never let your mind think that there is, because that's when you start to play victim. And that was unbelievable. Gosh, what other podcast? Sometimes I'll actually Alex Hormozzi's podcast.
Yep.
I listen to that quite a
game.
bit. He's a sales legend. So I just love what he does. And also I love how humble he is. And, he'll hop on a podcast. I mean, he's got a white beater on. He's got even his nose band on. The guy's doing $100 and some odd million in revenue a year. And he just talks about how he loves going out to the Cheesecake Factory. I love people like that because they're human. And I love talking to humans. So
he's got a really interesting approach. His approach to sales is actually, I don't sell, I only buy, which is super cool. So he doesn't sell any programs or products or anything. He only buys companies. I'm like, oh, that's cool. All right. Favorite movie?
Oh, favorite movie. Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay.
if you didn't see that one coming.
What'd you want to be when you grew up, when you were a kid?
When I was a kid, I really wanted to be a baseball player at first. And then my life, just to be a bit vulnerable here, my life kind of took a turn when my parents got divorced and we lost a lot. And all I wanted to be when I grew up was just successful and happy. And I started to focus less on what my title was and what people perceive me as, and more as like, am I in love with myself and am I happy? And that's, if I were to pick a title, I would say successful and happy. I don't really care what people call me.
I love that. Best piece of advice you've been given?
Oh, best piece of advice I've been given. Gosh, my mind is racing right now. I would say that you are in control, period. You're in control of your mindset. You're in control of your life. You're in control of the choices that you make. You're in control of the way you perceive things, the way you perceive people, and the way you navigate decisions. You're in control. And when you take full ownership and you embody full ownership over your life, your health, your relationships, that's where you start to see shifts. So you are in control.
Gold. Last question here. So if I were hypothetically going to write you a $50,000 check that you had to use in the business, how would you invest it back into the business? What would you spend it on? What would you use it for?
Oh, coach, some type of mentor that can show me the pathways to get this to a 8-figure business. I'm a big believer in just investing in yourself. I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in stocks, real estate, all different types of things. And I'll just say the only investment that just keeps giving and giving, especially in today's market, is this market keeps taking. The only investment that just keeps giving and giving is the investment in yourself, and the investment in being uncomfortable, and being in a room with people who are at a higher level than you and maybe even playing a bigger game than you in this moment right now.
Snaps to that. All right, Mike, where can everybody find you? How can they work with you? Where can they follow you? What do you have going on that's exciting?
You can find me in the mountains of Sedona.
He's not lying. He's got the most beautiful house, looking like 290-degree views. It's so stunning.
I'm probably about 30 miles deep into the mountains on my ATV somewhere with Kat, some snacks. But aside from that, you can find me on Instagram at Mike Golub with 1_. And feel free to reach out. If I could support you in any way, be more than happy to. And I would like to end here with just saying thank you. Thank you to Jess. Thank you to the listeners. And thank you for this moment right here to be present and just, having a wonderful conversation. So thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing so much wisdom and knowledge. And as we close out every episode, we both know that we named Digital Business Evolution the company name because we are always evolving and growing, and our businesses will only grow to the extent that we grow. They're a direct reflection of us. So, what is your next evolution? It could be business, it could be personal, but what's your next evolution?
My next evolution, I will be vulnerable here and just say one thing that I think I struggle with. I know you brought up masculine and feminine energy before, is being very much in the masculine. And for those who don't know, everyone, whether you're a male or female, you have both masculine and feminine energy. And masculine being more, I guess sales is the perfect example of that, where it's like go, 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 on the run, always, looking to execute a task or a certain thing. And feminine being more receiving and being more into like this lucid state where you can just kind of dream and like receive gifts and receive information. So one thing that I would love to evolve more and do is be a little bit more into the feminine energy, like receiving state, and really like getting better, sitting down and really getting better insight and wisdom downloads, right? Versus always thinking about that next task that I have to execute, run. And yeah, there's always a side of hustle that I love, and I'll never lose that. But I think I can do a better time and just kind of sitting there and having a wild imagination and just thinking about the business and just kind of receiving thoughts about how I could evolve it and things that I could do to shift in my reality to reach the next version of myself.
Beautiful. All right, fam, you heard it here first. He's asking to receive. So what better way to force him into receiving than taking a screenshot of this episode and telling Mike and telling me what your biggest takeaway was, something that you learned, and just how grateful you were to have him on the show, pouring into you. So take a screenshot, tag me at I am Jessica DeRose, and tag Mike at Mike Golub _ Let us know your biggest takeaways. And as always, cheers to your evolution. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode, I invite you to be a part of our ripple effect and share it with a friend. And please, if you feel called, take 30 seconds to leave a 5-star review, and I'll be forever grateful. Until next time, cheers to your evolution.